US President Donald Trump's approval rating on the economy has dropped to the lowest point of his presidential career. That's the finding of a CNBC All-America Economic Survey. It seems that the economic optimism seen post the re-election of Donald Trump has now disappeared, with more Americans now worried about the state of the economy and the trajectory of the stock markets. Out of 1,000 Americans surveyed, 55% of the respondents have expressed their disapproval with Trump's handling of the economy, and 43% have shown their approval. This is the first time that such a level of disapproval for Trump's handling of the economy has emerged in any CNBC poll. 49% of those surveyed believe that the economy will get worse over the next year. 40% of those who are negative about Trump's economic policy say they are hurting the economy now. Tariffs are the overall reason for public discontent. Americans disapprove of across-the-board tariffs by a 49 to 35 margin, and majority believe they are bad for American workers, inflation, and the overall economy. Democrats give tariffs a thumb down by an 83-point margin and independents by 26 points. Republicans approve of the tariffs by a 59-point spread, 20 points below their 79% net approval of the president. The president's worst numbers come for his handling of inflation, with only 58% of Republicans voting in favor. 57% of the public believe that US will soon be or is currently in a recession, up from just 40% in March 2024. The public also disapproves of the president's handling of federal government spending by a 45% to 51% margin, and foreign policy by a 42% to 53% margin. Americans have also turned more negative on the stock market than they've been in the last 2 years. 53% believe that it's a bad time to invest, which is 38% saying it's a good time to invest. Trump's best numbers come on immigration, where his handling of things is approved by a 53% to 41% margin. And deportation of illegal immigrants is approved 52% to 45%. Large majorities of Americans see Canada, Mexico, EU and Japan as more of an economic opportunity for the US rather than an economic threat. On China, however, the public sees it as a threat by a 44% to 35% margin, substantially worse than CNBC's survey in 2019. However, these approval ratings do not appear to be translating into significant potential gains for Democrats. Asked about congressional preference, 48% of the public support Democratic control and 46% support Republican control, which is almost the same as CNBC's March 2022 survey.
Let's turn to the economy and tariffs. Results from CNBC's latest All-America Economic Survey show Americans disapprove of the across-the-board tariffs by a wide margin. Our Steve Leisman has the exclusive results. Hey again, Steve.
Hey, Carl. Yeah, a plurality of Americans think across-the-board tariffs are a bad idea, with most believing they will hurt jobs and be worse for inflation, and the public is having a hard time believing there's a payoff at the end of all this. The CNBC All-America Economic Survey finding 49% of respondents say across-the-board tariffs are a bad idea. And look, 45% feel really strongly about it. Just 35% think they're a good idea, and they don't feel quite as strongly about it. 15% are unsure. Who's the most negative on tariffs? Well, take a look. Democrats, they hate them. African Americans, young people hate tariffs, and urban-dwelling Americans. Republicans are positive on it, but not as positive as they are on the president overall. Rural Americans, people above 100,000, maybe that's because there's a shift in the tax burden, and men aged 50 plus. Majorities think tariffs hurt importers, the cost of everyday goods, the overall economy, as well as individual workers. But, so you can see here, negative on that, negative on inflation, negative on the overall economy, negative overall on the worker, but just this one thing here for companies producing goods in the U.S., that's by a 51 to 37% margin you can see there. Now, what about other countries? The Americans do not embrace this idea from the president about his concern about our allies. They're positive on Mexico being an economic opportunity, positive on Japan, positive on Canada, positive on the EU, positive on the UK. Only China, but by a 9-point margin, not tremendously. So they're really not seeing these countries overwhelmingly as economic threats, much more as opportunities. Guys, why is this data important for investors? Well, what we see is that the public doesn't like tariffs. The markets don't like tariffs. So we have this question, what is constraining and guiding the president here when it comes to this critical issue of tariffs and the outlook for the economy?